Hello, you beautiful people. Grand rising. Welcome to Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests. It is Monday, the 27th of October, 2025. It is 9 a.m. GMT. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. Clocks went back an hour yesterday in the Northern Hemisphere. And I don't like it. I don't like the tampering with clocks. Just leave them where they are, for goodness sake. Welcome to Wake Up, the show that knows it is an absolute agenda for us to be fighting each other based on our differences in religion, the color of our skin, or our culture. And I'm not having it. Wake Up is an all-encompassing, all-embracing show that is far too sus to get sucked into such games, except for predators, of course. They are not welcome because, well, I'm just busy hunting them. Boom! Welcome to Wake Up, everybody. I'm in one of those moods. I hope you are all right. I hope you are all right. I really do. And John, very sorry to read in the chat about your mum. God bless her. May she rest in peace. And welcome back, my friend John from Coventry. Take good care of yourself. Thank you, Shin. Appreciate that. Change my hair color again. Going closer to my natural color. Thank you. I appreciate that. What's on Wake Up today? We will be joined by geopolitical journalist Warren Thornton. He'll be talking loads of stuff. Putin, Zelensky, Middle East ceasefire, Marco Rubio, Jess Phillips, Donald Trump, Keir Starmer, and the coalition of the clueless. And at 10 a.m., we will be joined by author and researcher Iain Davis, who will be talking about his new book, The Technocratic Dark State. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And on news, we'll be looking at Meltdown, the grooming gang inquiry, Blair's old friend, Lord Charlie Faulkner, and his role in the assisted suicide bill, Ulez, the lies, Trump and Sean Diddy Combs, Back to the Future, and the movie, that is. And I watched it over the weekend, and I want to talk about my thoughts with in reflection to how I felt about it as a child and how I feel about it now. And also, it's over. Non-crime hate crimes. Yes, indeed. And state propaganda erasing the rather wonderful Colin Wallace. More about that shortly. Plus your shout, and we will end the show with Believe and Take Action, or BTA, as I like to call it. We do news different around here. And you know why? Because somebody had to. And that someone is me. Good morning, or DJ Markcuson said, divide and conquer in full swing. Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And grand risings to you all, you beautiful people. Looks like this is going to be the last week in the Julia Vondel trial in Leicester. Vondel has claimed to be Madeleine McCann, even though she's not, and has been standing trial accused of stalking and harassing Kate and Jerry McCann. I haven't done much of a running commentary because the story I have to tell at the end is so much bigger than what I could have done throughout it. I have now filed all my necessary subject access requests, and a whole show will be dedicated to what has been going on behind the scenes regarding this trial, regarding me, regarding Madeleine McCann. I have also agreed to do one interview about it, only one. Overseas. It's an overseas interview. They will be coming to the UK at the start of the year to interview me. And I receive a lot of requests for interviews. I don't actually like being interviewed, to be perfectly honest with you, but I'll do maybe a couple a year at the most. I've agreed to do Andrew Gold at the end of this year, and I'm going to also do that other overseas YouTube channel. I don't want to talk about it right now because my trolls have a habit of getting themselves involved with things like that. But they do have 6 million subs, and I thought, you know what, let's spread the wake up message. And that's what we have to do. I have to just keep spreading the wake up message as far and wide as possible. And Del, what did you mean in the comments when you said anyone else notice how Sonia's interview with Andrew Gold was edited by the power of the RF? What does that mean? Explain to me. Tell me. I'm not sure. It confused me. It seems like a lifetime away, doesn't it, since last Monday's show, when we had that outage at the start of the show. We were only about 35 seconds or so into the broadcast, and the whole thing shut down like boom. And several people have written to me about it. The official story was Amazon Web Services had a bad day, and there was a DNS error. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that was what was really going on. Was it some kind of test that they were planning? I don't know. Maybe see what happens when you turn the whole system off. But what he should have done is remind people that we must not become overly dependent on the internet or the tech bros. And I'm going to be talking about that in some detail with Iain Davis shortly. And yes, and by the way, people, on this day in history, did you know, you may or we may not have known this, but the first king of England died. His name was Athelstan. He died on October the 27th, 939. He was actually made king in Kingston upon Thames, which is literally down the road from where I live. But you know what I have to say about that? Abolish the monarchy. Absolutely abolish the monarchy. And in the UK, the whole non-crime, hate crime thing that has infected our nation for the last 7 years or so is reaching its slow but certain death. Today in the Lords, in the House of Lords, Lord Strasburger has tabled a question to ask His Majesty's government whether they are reviewing the measures related to non-crime hate incidents. And I know for a fact they are. And yeah, it's about time. It's, as I say, absolutely coming to an end, and not before time, frankly. And last week, 2 days in the House of Lords to continue the path to make assisted suicide legal in the UK. I've read through much of the proceedings, and the element that is alarming people is what Lord Charlie Faulkner had to say. The clip that is circulating is not strictly his quote as such, but what he and Kim Ledbetter MP are pushing through. And that clause is that allows people with autism and learning difficulties to be killed legally. Don't believe me? Listen to this.
Learning difficulties or autism, again, with proper assistance, they too can have that option.
Again, with proper assistance, they too could have that option to be murdered legally by the state. Fantastic. Fantastic. If you don't recognise who Lord Charlie Faulkner is, by the way, he's great mate of Tony Blair. They were once flatmates. He was also the Lord Chancellor under Tony Blair as well. But straight up evil stuff. This is eugenics, unquestionably. Before I bring in my first guest, the rather wonderful Warren Thornton, I want to talk about the Independent Commission on Grooming Gangs because I want to discuss Jess Phillips with him. So I'll leave that part until he arrives. But the Independent Commission on Grooming Gangs is in expected chaos, frankly. I say expected because I saw exactly the same thing happen with the Independent Child Abuse Inquiry. I saw chairs quitting. I saw survivors quitting. I saw clear state interference to make the inquiry what its handlers wanted and not what survivors wanted. And the same thing is happening all over again. I talked last week about this pair. Jim Gamble and Annie Hudson. Gamble is a former cop and, in my experience, a deeply unpleasant and problematic individual. And Annie Hudson is a former director of children's services at the also highly problematic Lambeth Council. Cops and social workers, exactly the professions implicated in the grooming gangs cover-up. Thank goodness they have quit. Anyway, they have. They've both now quit. But unfortunately, so are survivors from the survivor panel. And what happened, of course, there was that, big pushback because Keir Starmer said we weren't going to have a grooming gangs inquiry because that had already been part of the independent child abuse inquiry. And then, of course, public pressure made it so that Starmer then announced in June that there would be a grooming gangs inquiry. And of course, everything is just, it's just absolutely mad. The whole thing is ridiculous. And now there's this big row. And what has sparked the row? Well, first of all, 4 women have resigned from the inquiries panel in protest at how the government has handled the process so far. And essentially, the government is suggesting widening the inquiry beyond grooming gangs. Listen, tell you straight, this is a cover up in the making. We've already done a child abuse inquiry. We need to drill down now on what's going on here. And such a remit means they will not get a thorough examination of gangs of predominantly Pakistani or Indian origin men. Muslims is important. We know it's a sizable demographic and has a cultural origin. That does not mean white Englishmen do not abuse, but that is why the specific nature of this inquiry needs to address the issue of Muslim grooming gangs. Open letter from the 4 women really raises the issue of what's going on. In her resignation letter, one of the women, Ellie Reynolds, said she felt the inquiry had become less about the truth and more about a cover-up. As I said, I'm going to be discussing Jess Phillips' role shortly with Warren Thornton. The NWG Network is the charity that has that is involved with the grooming gangs inquiry, and they sent a list of questions for reflection to panel members. And one of them is, should the inquiry have an explicit focus on grooming gangs or group-based child sexual exploitation abuse, or take a broader approach? No, it's the broader approach that will stop the politicians, that will stop the police, and that will stop the social workers who are implicated in this scandal from being identified. And we need to identify everybody who has been involved in this cover-up. Everybody. I think it needs to be a judge-led inquiry, frankly, but we shall see. And also interesting is this pair. Sir Mark Rowley, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, has written to Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, informing him that the force will be reassessing 9,000 potential grooming gang cases. And that's despite Sadiq Khan denying, frankly, that any grooming gangs are operating in our beautiful capital city. Mark Rowley, a common purpose man, so not really somebody that I completely trust, not at all, wrote to Sadiq Khan saying, too often victims have been disbelieved and even judged at times. And a spokesperson for the Mayor of London said Sadiq has consistently been clear to the Met that no stone must be left unturned in pursuing justice for the victims of grooming gangs and ensuring the vile perpetrators are brought to justice. I wouldn't trust any of these two men on this screen, frankly. Not at all. How are you all? I hope you are all well, you beautiful people. But I tell you who I do trust, the man I am about to bring in. Let's do it. Warren Thornton.
Hello, Sonia.
How are you, Blossom?
I am absolutely fine, thank you. You're looking well yourself. And hello to everybody who is watching.
Lovely to have you with us, journalist and geopolitical analyst with bells on, frankly. Let's start by talking about Jess Phillips. She is, of course, the safeguarding minister. 4 of the people on the survivor panel want her to quit, and 5 others have written in saying no do. I mean, she's denying that the idea is to broaden it, that they're looking at every which way that they can appropriately look at it. Is that what you wanted to talk about to do with Jess Phillips, Warren?
Well, it absolutely is, because let's face it, she's turned around and said it's very difficult to find somebody to chair the committee. That's absolute nonsense. There are many, many people out there. What she's talking about, the right person as far as they're concerned, to smudge and fudge the issue of mainly Muslim grooming gangs that literally did this to overdo. This is the scale of this is unbelievable. The amount of children and the amount of young girls who were abused in all sorts of different manners is absolutely staggering. And the failures of the people, social workers, police officers, Labour councillors, many Labour councillors, of course, that would, of course, have to go under the bus and should be thrown under the bus,
right.
Because they put political expediency above the safety of our children. And Jess Phillips is doing the same thing. She should resign. She is the minister for supposedly safeguarding women and children, and once again, she's basically safeguarding the Muslim community by trying to broaden this investigation.
I'm a bit disappointed with Jess Phillips, to be frank with you, Warren, because she's always been so brilliant in terms of standing up for violence against women and girls. But there seems to be a lot of question marks about this. On Tuesday, she answered an urgent question in the Commons on recent criticism of the inquiry. She said allegations of intentional delay, lack of interest, or widening of the inquiry scope or dilution are false. She has to prove herself on this, doesn't she? She has to prove that survivors are uppermost in her mind, sadly. And can I just say that I think there are a lot of people who are trying to take political pot shots at her. There are people who have never had any interest, right, Warren, in girls being abused, and they're literally jumping on this bandwagon because they see that it's a populist choice. Go on, you wanted to say something there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are people jumping on this left, right and centre, and they're going to make political capital of it. And it is the politics of this that are the reason that this was hidden for so many years, when many people were screaming about it. And of course, there were many friends of mine that were screaming about it. We actually interviewed a couple of the victims many years ago, and nothing was being done. Now, they were dragged kicking and screaming. I don't feel sorry for her in any way, shape or form. I know that she's being hammered, literally in the media and everything else. But it's absolutely right to hammer her. there should be no political thought behind this whatsoever. There should be just what happened to these women and children, these young girls or whatever. Very, very simply, we need to learn the lessons. We need to have an independent inquiry. There are many Labour people that are going to go under the bus for this. Putting Jess Phillips in charge of overseeing this whole thing straight away is politically stupid. There should be no Labour people involved in this inquiry whatsoever, for the simple fact that they are the ones who are mainly responsible, Labour councillors, Labour MPs and everything else. And let's not forget, every single Labour MP out there, every single one, voted against having a national independent grooming inquiry.
I mean, it's quite astonishing, isn't it? And what makes me sick when I say that they've turned this into a political game, because there was the independent child abuse inquiry, and Professor Jay, who was leading the inquiry, put forward 22 recommendations to the Conservative government, and only 2 of those recommendations have ever done anything with them at all. So the Conservatives did absolutely nothing to help child abuse survivors, but now they're all, let's do this. It's so wrong what Labour are doing, and I hate those kind of people, Warren. They make me sick. They don't care about abuse survivors.
No, exactly that. Badenoch, literally, and many others. Quite unbelievable. And it's no wonder that their entire political parties are in the toilet. Nobody trusts them. These people have moved away from the ordinary people of Great Britain. Now, you get people with the Israel lobby and all sorts of, should we say, corporations and everything else. They're more interested in there and Ukraine and things like that, rather than the ordinary people of Great Britain. And this is probably the most heinous crime that has ever happened to the British people in nearly a century. And it is unbelievable that these people, 250,000 young girls abused is the scope of this thing. That has never, this is unprecedented on a level.
It is massive. And the only reason that I'm go like that is because there are so many injustices, right? There are just so many injustices. It's almost impossible to do a kind of hierarchy of them, but I take your point. And the problem is that the reason that these girls have gone unheard is because for the most part, they come from impoverished or dysfunctional backgrounds, and people don't care about them, Warren. We live in, England is such a classist society, and these girls from working class backgrounds are they're like cannon fodder to the British establishment.
Yes, absolutely. And what you have to remember is these people are elected by the people. So these are the people that should be most important to you. And of course, the political expediency of having a Birmingham MP who is going to be relying on the Muslim vote to get elected. It's quite staggering, Sonia. It is unbelievable. And it does. I'm with you, because this makes me so angry that this could happen. These are the most precious things in the world of children, and for this to happen and for it to be swept under the carpet by the very people that are meant to be protecting them, the police, the social workers, the councils, and then to lie about it as well on top of that. Every single one of these who helped cover that up belongs in jail.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we don't have big enough jails, and we're too busy building jails for people who steal bottles of water. So, right, let's move on. Let us move on. When I bring up this image, what do you think, Warren? Marco Rubio, what do you think about Little Damien? As I've never known him to be called Little Damien. Talk to me, Warren. What's going on?
Well, I've always called him Little Damien, because if anybody's ever seen The Omen, you would know exactly who I'm talking about. It is quite staggering. I've been warning about this guy for ages and ages and ages, and now finally he is being pushed into the spotlight. This is the viper in Trump's bosom, if you like. He has been against Trump from day one, and as soon as he was bought in, I was screaming from the rooftops, no, no, no. Everybody thinks this guy is neocon light. He is as dark as they come. You have to remember that Marco Rubio, literally, if you go and read some of his theses, go and read some of the things that he has written. He is he is military-industrial complex, he is Israel, and he is BlackRock rolled into one. This is the anointed one. This will be the guy that they will push to be the next president of America. Let's face it, the Democrats won't be too upset if he becomes the next president of America, because he is so hardline. And this guy will cause more wars and more danger for everybody in the world. This guy needs to be made sure that he never becomes president of the United States.
But Trump is always bigging him up. Do you think that Trump is aware that he's vying for his position?
Absolutely. Trump never wanted him. He got $100 million donation from obviously from the Israeli lady that, of course, you've seen on TV before.
Is that Miriam Adelson? Is that who?
The one.
Okay, yeah.
That's the
real president of the United States.
That's the one, and she wanted Rubio in the cabinet. She literally wanted Rubio to be the deputy, literally his deputy. And of course, they turned around and said, "Okay, Secretary of State." But this guy, you have to remember, has been in bed with literally the people in Europe as well, scuppering this peace deal from the moment it started. And he literally now it's literally come out that Marco Rubio stop this meeting happening in Budapest. And they didn't do this to throw Marco Rubio under the bus. They did this to say, look, here's a president that you've got dithering. Here's a guy who can make sensible, good decisions. He's firm, and this is your next president of the United States. This is the underlying trend. It's not throwing Rubio under the bus and say, look, he's going against Trump. It's saying, look, Trump's a ditherer. This guy really is the guy that we want. He is going to be backed at the next election by the military-industrial complex money like you wouldn't believe. J.D. Vance doesn't stand a chance. And who have you got on the Democrats? You've got Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, you've got Jasmine Crockett, or you've got Gavin Newsom. They're never going to get in a million years. So it's a choice of two people. It's going to be J.D. Vance or it's going to be Marco Rubio. And horribly, it's going to be Marco Rubio. Look what he's doing in Venezuela. Look what he's doing in Ukraine.
Wow. I mean, what is he doing in Venezuela?
Venezuela is absolutely brilliant. You're going to love this. Now, Marco Rubio, of course, is one of these people turning around and saying it's absolutely terrible. We can't have this and all the rest of it. It's all to do with drugs. So Venezuela Maduro has bent over backwards to turn around and say, look, we very much would like to be on board with the United States. We don't want this or anything else. None of the boats that they've actually bombed had the capacity to reach American shores. Now, Maduro, as I say, has bent over backwards, but Rubio wants to replace the government as the drugs they supply are, according to him, the most heinous crime of all. But he's lying through his teeth because his brother-in-law was a frontman for cocaine traffickers. Now, there's a gentleman called Orlando Cecilia, his brother-in-law, who played a significant role in the $75 million drug operation right out of Rubio's own home. One of Cecilia's drug runners later testified at trial that he cut and stored massive amounts of cocaine in his spare bedroom between March 1985 and January 1986. Now, Rubio maintained that he and his family were totally unaware of Cecilia's drug dealings at the time, and his brother-in-law then spent 10 years in jail. After he was released in 2000, Cecilia got into his real estate license with Rubio's help. He was then the majority whip of the Florida House of Representatives. Rubio wrote a letter recommending that Florida Division of Real Estate approve his application without disclosing the family connection. And he said, and I quote, "I have known Mr. Cecilia for over 25 years. This was in 2002. I recommend him for license without reservation." The lies they tell for invading other countries or moving into removing other countries' leaders are quite incredible, Sonia.
I mean, I don't for one second have your knowledge on these individuals, but I can tell that we're talking about a dark character here. His whole vibration is just off, right? You can just feel that on your gut level, on your gut instinct. So Marco Rubio, I get now why you call him Little Damien. I get it. Right. When I flash up this image, Warren, what do you think? Zelensky and Putin.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what we've got at the moment is outside of a place called Pokrovsk, which is in the Donbass. We have around about 12,000 Ukrainian soldiers who are completely surrounded by the Russian military and are about to get wiped out. Now, there's already 10,000 dead, which would take that over, in my estimation, with my contacts, over 2 million. Now, just get this, Sonia. There are people that are saying there are not 2 million dead. We are saying that there is. So please take this. On 2022, Ukraine, with its reserves, had 2.2 million. Since then, They've had 3 mobilizations, 1.4 million. That makes 3.6. They've beaten up God knows how many people and thrown them on the front lines. It's around 300,000. And they've got 100,000 in captivity. So that makes 4 million. At the 1st of January 2025, they only had all 3 services, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army, had 965,000 men left. Now, only 700,000 have been injured, 250,000 have deserted, and 100,000 are in captivity. So could you please tell me what's happened to the other 2 million bodies?
Ooh, I mean, deeply alarming. So Keir Starmer has come out and said Putin has no willingness to settle this, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? I love it. Whenever I mention somebody's name, I get this little intake of breath from you, like you're ready to steamroller these people, Warren, which is absolutely wonderful. So Keir Starmer, what's his role in all of this?
Well, his role in all of this is he's signed a deal. He will do exactly what the Americans tell him to. He's a globalist, WEF, big friends with Bill Gates, big friends, of course, with Larry Fink, who own BlackRock. And, of course, BlackRock own all sorts of mineral rights and all sorts of land inside Ukraine that Russia are currently sitting on. So he's very, very invested in this. In fact, as well as Alexander Soros, who's actually bought parcels of Ukrainian land, would you believe, for burying nuclear waste on perfectly fertile land. Now, the problem that we have with Keir Starmer, as I say, he's not only have we got these 3 Ukrainian male models that we need to delve into, and we need some answers on that. We also have to ask why he is literally pledged 3.5 billion for the next 100 years to Ukraine. And the problem that we have on top of this as well, Sonia, is this coalition of the clueless. They call it the coalition of the willy. But this coalition of the clueless is nothing of the sort. Maloney's already stepped aside and said, I'm not sending troops. And this is just to push Zelensky to keep going while America keep about their business. And of course, this is where he has destroyed the country. Because what we're going to do is we're going to buy oil from America, and we're going to buy weapons from America, and we're going to give them to the Ukrainians. And with the oil, Sonia, here's the thing. We were always being told that our bills have gone up because of Russia. But did you know that on oil companies, there is a 78% tax? So very, very simply, when we buy the oil, we're paying 78%. The people who buy the oil, 78% tax, they pass that on to the customer. That's the reason your fuel bills are going through the roof. Nothing to do with Russia, but this is where we are going. And this guy is completely clueless, completely helpless. He couldn't run a bath, let alone a country.
Let me read you some of the comments that are coming in. Lynn said, good comment, Lynn. Thank you. We never hear of Ukrainians over here protesting about their men dying over there. Or am I wrong? Do we just not hear about it? So many young men dead and now older men. I mean, it's a good point, isn't it? Where are the Ukrainians protesting?
They're all in hiding, Sonia, because the last thing they want to do is be sent home to fight in this war. In actual fact, one of the countries, Denmark, has put forward an idea that the Ukrainians that are in their country should be sent back home. And they're exactly that. And that might well go through the EU. But here's the thing. The people who are protesting inside Ukraine, there was a banner the other day, literally a banner with all the missing soldiers' faces on. A huge banner over 70 foot long with all little pictures of every single Ukrainian that is missing. And of course, if they can't prove that they're dead and they just register them as missing, for the first 3 months, the commanders can keep accepting the money coming that they get paid for those soldiers. They know they're dead, but they just keep them on the books anyway. And then, of course, the government do not have to pay out the widows. Simply, there's every time someone dies in Ukraine.
Cynical.
$382,000. So when you consider that there's almost 2 million Ukrainians dead, you're looking at $382,000 per Ukrainian dead. And of course, they've turned around and they've now just voted in the parliament, Sonia, that they will not be eligible to pay that money. Was meant to be straight away. Then it was made 3 years. And the Ukraine parliament have just turned around and said it will now be 8 years before any money is paid to the victims' families.
On a Plane says Putin has got unstoppable nuclear-powered cruise missiles, so they say. What pish? Is it pish?
No, he does have a latest missile. But I'll tell you what is stoppable and what isn't stoppable. There are Garand drones, which are stoppable. The Patriot systems are no good, the American ones. They have a 6% kill rate. That is the American Patriot missile system. Now, very simply, they have Iskander-Ms. Now, they're not like the ordinary Iskanders. They've literally brought them on a bit. They can't shoot them down. They can't shoot down the Kinzhals, which are the hypersonic missiles that they've got, and they cannot shoot down the Oreshniks. And Putin has just unveiled a new ICBM, which is capable of unlimited travel, obviously, on a nuclear fuel rod, which enables it to travel at hypersonic speed and can reach anywhere on the planet. So he does have superior weapons. I'm not saying that you can't design a system to bring it down, but at the moment, there are 4 types of missile that we have, literally. And of course, what they do with these drones, Sonia, they're very, very smart with these Garand drones. They'll send 1,000 of these drones a day they can send, so they can outproduce and overwhelm the amount of air defenses that they have in Ukraine. Now, very, very simply, and a real straightforward thing here, is they send half of them packed with explosives and half of them not. So, of course, they waste their air defenses on knocking the ones out of the sky. It's sort of like a game of Russian roulette, if you like. Has this got explosives in or not? And, of course, it overwhelms their air defense system.
It's extraordinary stuff. Talk to me about the Middle East, Warren. Obviously, we had the ceasefire. And Warren, you were the first person, like, if not last year, possibly even the year before, that I heard talking about Jared Kushner, obviously Donald Trump's son-in-law. I believe that his wife has now converted to Judaism.
Yes.
And you were one of the first people who said, this is all a plot and this is all a plan. This is financial. Talk to me about the ceasefire. Talk to me about Jared Kushner, Warren, please.
Yeah, Jared Kushner obviously is the son-in-law, but he's also a property developer. And of course, he's got together with many others, including Witkoff, and they had this Greater Israel Trust, which is a plan which you can actually go and look it up. It's a plan to rebuild Gaza into like a sort of Riviera, if you like, for the rich. And of course, the only people, Palestinians, that will be allowed back are literally waiters and bin men and people like that. So this will be a playground for the rich and famous. This ceasefire was never going to hold. It hasn't. There are killings going on as we speak. There is bombings in Lebanon. There is bombings in the West Bank. Remember, the West Bank wasn't part of this ceasefire. And of course, we have a major problem in, of course, the bulldozers and the settlers, of course, are moving in. You don't take bulldozers into a place if you're going to rebuild it for them. Israel are going to kill all these refugees, and then they're going to bring in bulldozers, level the place, and build them a brand new, beautiful palace, Sonia. And the Palestinians can live there happily ever after. It's complete nonsense. This is literally a playground for the rich and famous, and it will make Israel almost independently self-sufficient, because they have got tech billionaires that they want to move there, people like Elon Musk and many others. And of course, I think I've sent you the plans, Sonia. They are quite incredible, the internet companies and everything else. And the whole prospectus is done. You have to remember that they were selling parcels of land in Israel at auctions before the land was even cleared.
I mean, it's extraordinary stuff. It's quite incredible having conversations with people like you, Warren, because it's a completely different narrative to what you're hearing. That, like, obviously, we all know the problems with legacy media, but can it really be that different? That they are portraying it to us as this is the absolute right agreement, that everything's fine, but we know the ceasefire has already been broken. You said it was inevitable to me yesterday, or words to that effect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly that. The whole idea was just to have a brief pause while they rearm. You have to remember that they're giving missiles to the Saudi Arabians, who are lobbing them at the Yemenis at least 2 or 3 a day. So of course their stockpiles are going down. They're desperate for another go at Iran. That's why the Zangezur corridor between Azerbaijan and Armenia will be run by independent contractors, American contractors, of course. And of course, they'll be able to do raiding missions into Iran, and try and overthrow the government that way, because they were never going to do it any other way. And did you notice, I don't know whether you noticed, but when they were looking like the Gerald R. Ford was sailing towards the Middle East, then suddenly did an about face and went to Venezuela. On its way there, suddenly there were 40 odd Russian big cargo carriers that landed in Iran carrying all sorts of equipment. And America suddenly went, maybe not a good idea at this moment to get involved. So this is just a brief pause before they restart. But at the end of the day, Gaza, there will be no Palestinians apart from serfs inside Palestine once they have finished.
It's extraordinary stuff. They are talking about the Greater Israel Project in the comments, or at least John from Coventry is saying about how a lot of countries within the new borders they want. That's true, isn't it? How long has this been in existence for? Do we know?
Yes, the trust that I was still, if you remember, I was talking about a couple of years ago when I was talking about Jared. The actual trust, the actual planning for this started in 2009.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing that people need to understand is that these are all long-term plans. This is not something they just discussed in January 2025. This is a long-term plan. And obviously this involves the capture of social media as well. I'm going after you, Warren. I'm going to play the clip from the end of September where Netanyahu talks about the importance of social media. How do you think he's coming out of all of this? He just looks like the person that he is. That is a bloodthirsty warmonger, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're talking about the capture of social media, have a look at Larry Ellison, who's just acquired TikTok, and of course he's acquired quite a bit, shall we say, of land parcels. He's now making a bid for CNN, for Paramount and other studios. So he's going to control quite a bit of the media. And of course, his son, many of them, have, shall we say, been there with the cap on, butting the wall to let people know where their loyalties lie and everything else. Rubio is another one. Witkoff is another one. You only have to look at all these people who are, shall we say, going there and pledging their allegiance. This is an unstoppable juggernaut. And until you take away all lobbying from any politicians, then this will just continue. People say, oh, how do we stop this? The only way is to go independence or literally to put these people in jail.
Quite literally that. Warren, what is on your table this week? You, of course, have warrenthornton.com. Is it 6 evenings a week? I ask you this every time because I think
we are 6 evenings a week. We'll be looking into, because we'll be looking into what the Russians are calling seven heavens. So there are seven literally towns and cities that are surrounded by the Russians at the moment. They're all in cauldrons. They're all ready to fall. There's places such as Kupiansk. There's places such as Siversk. You're looking Slavyansk. You're also looking at Pokrovsk. You're looking at many others, and these are all once Pokrovsk falls, the gateway to the Dnieper River and cutting off almost half of Ukraine is something that's going to be a problem. And we're also looking into the French amassing people inside of Romania, getting ready just in case they need to make a dash to take over the port of Odessa. And that is everybody's going, oh, it won't happen, it won't happen. Well, please tell me why the French are building up men and machines on the border of Romania, right by the port of Odessa, if that's not going to happen. So that's something that we're following up and delving into quite large.
Oh, you're an absolute star, everybody. This is Warren Thornton. You can find him at warrenthornton.com. I think I've already put a link in the description to all of his various links. Absolutely brilliant, sterling stuff. Have a fantastic week, Warren. We will see you very soon. Take good care of yourself.
And God bless you all. Take care, everybody.
God bless you, darling. Take good care of yourself. Wonderful to see him. What an absolute star that man is. I love talking to him. I feel like I've been around the world in about 20 minutes. So we were right, by the way, to say that Sadiq Khan's Ulez was never, ever, ever about health, ever, not ever. And I'm equally skeptical, by the way, about the motivation for the new research that proves we were right and that he was wrong. So let me explain. Okay, Ulez, London's ultra low emission zone, which of course is being farmed out to the rest of the country as well, was expanded by Khan 2 years ago. It was an estimated cost of £155 million. No cheap change there. Ulez allows authorities to charge diesel and petrol vehicles £12.50 a day if they are not compliant with the emission standards. There's a network of cameras around the 32 London boroughs, as one example, covers over 1,500 square kilometres. which is about 580 square miles, and targets around 9 million people. And what happens is you can either buy a kind of like a day pass to travel around these parts of inner and outer London. And if you don't, one of these network of cameras will snap a photo of your vehicle's license plate, then search a database to see if your vehicle is compliant. And if not, you will be issued a fine. Anyway, there's this new study, new study, and it's at the University of Birmingham, and they've concluded that the expansion of Ulez in August 2023 has had no significant impact whatsoever in lowering air pollution. And we knew it because we all knew that it wasn't about that. Okay, it's about money, certainly, but it's about so much more. And what has happened is this team, the new University of Birmingham, they focused on, to start with, two harmful pollutants, the nitrogen dioxide and NO2. And they studied air quality data hourly at 124 sites across London. And this was following the introduction of Ulez. So they initially started this. It's an interesting study, actually. They initially started this study in 2021. And then they followed it up with the expansion in August 2023. They created a computer-generated model for assessing the direct impact of Ulez on these pollutants in the Greater London area. And they have concluded, as I say, that there is no sizable difference. And so health is not the issue and never was. But by the way, the people of this study aren't our friends, because actually what they're saying is that we need to take other action. And that is, we need to reduce the amount of vehicles on the road. See where this is going, peeps? We all know it, don't we? So this study has now concluded that Ulez alone is not enough to make London's air quality safe for breathing. And so what needs to happen is we need to have a significant reduction of vehicles on the road. And they say we need to see a model shift to more active travel and public transport to reduce the number of vehicles on the road. And it's the 15-minute cities all over again. All we need to do is we need to scrap Ulez. And actually, we need a better transport system in London. The truth is that Sadiq Khan, for all of his great words about public transport, bear in mind, he very famously has traded off this whole idea that he's a bus driver's son, pretty much like Keir Starmer has traded off the idea that he's a tool maker's son, because they think that by saying this, they will appeal to kind of like a wider demographic, including working class people. But a globalist is a globalist. I don't give a flying fig who their father is or what their father did. Anyway, the bottom line is we need to scrap it. Sadiq Khan has actually created more problems for our buses. The electric buses that we have are an absolute nightmare. They are hot in summer and cold in winter. They're rubbish. And he's directly responsible for this, been reducing our bus timetables as well. So they just don't want us to move. They want us just to stay in our houses. That's what they want to do. So even though this study is being trumpeted almost certainly, I'm sure, by people who are in opposition to Sadiq Khan and who have opposed Ulez, the bottom line is the people in this study are not friends of ours. They just want us to get off the road. These people, they want to just lock us up, don't they? They don't want us to have any freedom. They don't want us to have any freedom. Don't forget us up north. I won't, Maria. But this study was just about London. But I hear you, because obviously they've got Ulez all around the country, including in Birmingham. George Carlin tried to warn us. He did, True Tech. He absolutely did. Sadistic can't, says SMG. I always like to say Sadiq can't, but my daughter said, Mum, it sounds corny. So I'm trying not to say that. Or was that effect? Anyway, that's about Sadiq Khan. So he's having a bit of an interesting time at the moment, what with acting. I mean, London, capital city, right? And the fact that we've had so very little done in terms of grooming gangs is in itself a national scandal. Right, let's move on. X is dying, formerly Twitter. X is definitely dying. Musk posted a tweet saying, sorry, it is the way it is, but they're still working with the algorithm. Now, I'm not sure I've seen that amount of comments in response to a tweet, like ever. And they're mostly negative. At the last count, there were over 34,000 responses telling him that people know what he has done with the platform. We all know what Elon Musk has done with Twitter. And if you don't know, have a listen to what I just referred to with Warren. I don't know if you've heard this, where Benjamin Netanyahu is, let me just give you the intro to it. Benjamin Netanyahu is talking about how weapons in war have now changed. This is not just about kind of spearing people, but we have to fight war on different fronts. And Benjamin Netanyahu is talking about the importance of social media. Have a listen to this, and that will tell you exactly what Elon Musk has done with Twitter. Have a listen.
To fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is followers. TikTok, number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X. That's very good. And, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk.
We have to talk to Elon. You talk to Elon. We know that. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. Yes, he is. And the thing is, a lot of people were saying, why do you need to mess around with the algorithm at all? Because Elon Musk never purchased Twitter to make it a free speech platform for people. Never, ever, ever. I mean, we're going to be talking, as I say, to Iain Davis shortly about his book, and we will be talking about Elon Musk. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. But I just think it's really interesting. The bottom line is this, and that is X has absolutely modified its algorithm to boost pro-Israel content. Unquestionably so. And then, of course, you have Larry Ellison, who has taken over TikTok. Larry Ellison, big fat Zionist, and buying up huge swathes of media and entertainment, and pretty much like, they're like a Murdoch family, the Ellisons. And I just think it's so concerning that some of the richest people on planet Earth all seem to own social media. Elon Musk, said to be the richest man on earth. I don't know if I believe that or not, but he is said to own X. And although he actually sold parts of it at the start of this year, he's still at the head of it. Then you have Larry Ellison, who's said to be the second richest man in the world on TikTok. And you have Mark Zuckerberg, who is said to be in the top 5 of richest people in the world. I don't know whether that is actually true or not, but he's certainly extremely wealthy. And Mark Zuckerberg is now overseeing Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. And then you have Jeff Bezos, who obviously the creator of Amazon, who now owns the Washington Post. Our media, both legacy media and social media, is being taken over by these technocrats, and we really should worry. I knew it was a problem the moment that Elon Musk incentivized people by giving them money for their posts. That was when you knew that the site was just going to go to hell, frankly. And it has. That is exactly what's happened. And these paid influencers, it's even been admitted that they're being paid $7,000 per their post for Israel. And so these are the realities. This is what's going on. And the Netanyahu has been very clear. He has framed social media as weapons. That's what he's done. But he's not lying to us. He's actually telling us the truth. These people do often tell us the truth of what they are doing. And I think it's absolutely outrageous what is happening in X. I cannot stand it anymore. I went on there. I go on there now just for Wake Up, right? To post about Wake Up or to talk to Wake Up guests. And I went on there yesterday, and the first thing I noticed was the level of division on there. Like, these people are completely being divided up, right? Some people were going on and on about, there's too many black and brown people in adverts. I have to paraphrase Chris Rock on this one, right? And that is that, as Chris Rock said, right, in adverts, but not in corporations or running the show. So I'm like really, really sick and tired of all these divisions that are taking place. They are absolutely deliberate. Elon Musk is not a friend of the little people, quote unquote, little people. Elon Musk is not one of us. He's absolutely not one of us. He's a technocrat. But he's also a Zionist. And he's got, just like his behavior is like an absolute Nazi. He's turned I mean, X was bad before in terms of all the gender stuff. And in terms of COVID, it was really bad. I'm not saying that Twitter part 1 or part 2 was ever good. It was always very much a handled operation. But now you can see who is handling it. And who is handling it is absolutely Benjamin Netanyahu and the Zionists. That's who's in control of X. And it is absolutely horrible on there. And you have these people who are based in Israel pretending that they're based in, I mean, you have these people who are based in India, pretend they're based in Israel, and it's absolutely hilarious. And X has said that they're going to be showing where people are based, but I don't know if they will, because once that happens, you're going to start to see how many people are engagement farming, claiming to be something that they are not. And actors going to act. Yes, indeed. Francis is finished talking. And Francis says, Trump is taking care of business. Time to just sit back and watch. Well, I wish I had your faith, Francis. I'm going to draw a little bit from that. That would be very nice indeed. Musk is a transhumanist and his parents were besties with Schwab. Yes, Stella, that, absolutely that. Right, where are we? 9:50. I know I've got time for something else before I bring in my next guest. What shall I move to? What shall I move to? I want to look at... I wonder if I missed anything out. I want to look at this Diddy knife claim. Anybody heard about it? Right. So Sean Diddy Combs. Okay. On July the 2nd this year, he was found guilty. He was found guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution, but not guilty on racketeering and sex trafficking charges. Okay, so there was that. And he's at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where a number of people are there. And let's just bring in an image of him, of Sean Combs. Sure, I've got one somewhere, as you do, generally, sometimes, not always. Where did that go? I did actually have one ready, but it's now disappeared, as these things often do, oddly enough. Anyway, let me just talk about him let me bring him in with this man, because I think this is quite funny. The person this image is of Sean Combs and 50 Cent. 50 Cent. 50 Cent is probably somebody more than most people who have absolutely ripped Diddy apart. Anyway, on October the 3rd this year, Combs was sentenced to 50 months in prison with credit for 12 months' time already served. And there is an absolute bid to get a pardon from Donald Trump. We know that. We know that is true because his legal team have requested a pardon from Trump. And Trump himself has acknowledged that Diddy's legal team had requested a pardon, to which he responded that he would look at the facts. Now, I have no idea why Donald Trump may be interested in giving Sean Diddy Combs a pardon, but these images may tell you. Trump has been incredibly close to a lot of very iffy, dodgy people. And so what we heard is that Combs has been threatened with attack in his prison. Now, I'm not entirely convinced this is true. And the reason I brought this image of 50 Cent is because he certainly isn't either. But essentially, Diddy's longtime friend, Chaluki Finney, said that Diddy woke up with a knife to his throat in his cell. And Finney claimed that the attacker could easily have killed Diddy, but instead left him unharmed, calling it an intimidation tactic to send a message. No, I'm not convinced. Neither is 50 Cent. Combs is a known liar and will do anything to get out of prison. And I mean, I always find 50 Cent quite amusing for the most part anyway. And it's good to see that I'm not the only one that doubts this story. I believe that this is absolutely, unquestionably an attempt to get pardoned. I mean, there seems like no doubt about that. Did I ever go to a Finney? Did I ever go to a Diddy party? Asked Finn. No, but I was invited. I met him on several occasions. I also met Diddy, and I was one of the last, not Diddy, Biggie, his protege, and the notorious B.I.G. And I was one of the last journalists to travel with Biggie and his crew throughout Europe before he was murdered. But I never went to one of his parties. Stanley has no idea what I'm talking about. Well, that happens sometimes, Stanley. That happens sometimes. Are they all pardoned? Funtime wants to know, what about all the other cons who have had a knife attack? Are they all pardoned and let out? No, of course not. But then they aren't in images like this with Donald Trump, are they? Right? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I think we live in such a corrupt world. I would not be at all surprised if Donald Trump pardons him. Not at all surprised. I wouldn't. And before we bring in our next guest, before we bring in Iain Davis, I want to talk about state scandals and cover-ups involving this man. This man is, in my opinion, what a hero looks like. His name is Colin Wallace. I have interviewed him several times, including in relation to survivor Richard Kerr and the Kincora boys' home scandal, where young boys were abused, including allegations of abuse at the hands of King Charles' uncle, Lord Louis Mountbatten. Colin has long been pursued by the state for blowing the whistle on abuse, and the cover-ups, including being falsely imprisoned. And now they are determined to raise him altogether from official letters. I noted that Declassified have been talking about him. I talked to Colin briefly recently because he's suing the MOD. And what has happened, and I think this is interesting, is that his missing service records includes evidence that he, as a whistleblower who served in the Ulster Defence Regiment, while he was responsible for secret psychological warfare operations run by the British Army, and they've erased them. They've got rid of those files. And he also was absolutely involved in revealing the abuse at the Kincora boys' home in Belfast. And that was covered up by police, MI5, and the British Parliament. This is airbrushing Colin Wallace from history, unquestionably, because if you can airbrush, if you can remove people who whistle blew on the scandal, well, and effectively the scandal goes away, right? So Wallace's lawyer, Kevin Winters, told Declassified it's part of a wider systemic pattern of file destruction on anything which directly or indirectly challenges national security insofar as it relates in any way to the conflict in Northern Ireland. We've seen this happen repeatedly with inquiries, inquests, criminal investigations, and civil actions. This latest news will form part of Mr. Wallace's pending High Court civil action against the Ministry of Defence for damages. If I said Ministry of Justice earlier, forgive me, mistake. It's the Ministry of Defence that Colin told me he is suing. And what is interesting, and don't tell me this is a coincidence, and I don't for 1 second believe that any wake-up viewer would believe that this is a coincidence, but what happened was that when Wallace's lawyers began proceedings against the Ministry of Defence in 2023, that's when the service files went missing. I mean, come on, you can't make this stuff up, right? And I mean, the great thing about Colin, he's a very thorough forensic individual. What he's been through, they imprisoned him. They banged him up. They did everything they could to stop him whistleblowing about systemic abuse and what was happening, the psychological operations that were being conducted on soldiers, as well as the abuse of children that was being covered up. And he's whistleblown on all those things. But yeah, they banged him up. They've done everything they can. And now they are trying to erase him from history. That's what they are trying to do. That's what they're trying to do. But we're not going to have it because he's a star. And I'm very, very fond indeed of Colin Wallace. And I just want more people in this world to be a bit more like Colin Wallace. So no, from our perspective, we will not allow them to erase what he's done, to erase the wet records. We now know absolutely what they're up to. And more power to your elbow, Colin. And once you have won this claim, which I have no doubt you will, I have faith that you will win this. And once you have won that, we welcome you back on Wake Up to tell us more. More power to your elbow, Colin Wallace. Right, talking about more power to your elbow. How are you people? How are you people? Hello, Trevor. It's no coincidence, fun times. Absolutely not. I mean, the idea that he starts pursuing the Ministry of Defence and then at the same time they decide to erase his files. I mean, that is actually tampering with evidence. You can't actually do that, right? And Christine says, disgusting. Colin must win. What vibrations are we dealing with, blind hip shaker? I'm feeling vibrations. Right. Let me see. Let me just find my notes. And because I've had to make extensive notes for this one, because it's a whole book. It's a big whole book, and a rather fantastic one as well. And we have talked at times with Iain Davis about it, but let's bring him back to talk about where he's up to now. Here he is, Iain Davis. Good morning to you, Iain.
Good morning, Sonia. How are you?
Great. I'm fantastic, Iain, and feeling very optimistic and kind of like ready to go over these globalists and these technocrats. Your book is brilliant, by the way. I went over it over the weekend. It's brilliant. And we've discussed lots of it before. Your book is The Technocratic Dark State. It's due to be published by Whitney Webb and Mark Goodwin's Papercut Publishing. You sent me a review copy. 17 chapters. Actually, no, there's more than 17 chapters. I think there's 20 chapters.
20 chapters.
There's 20 chapters. There's also
there was only 10. There was only going to be 10, but now there's 20.
There's also a brilliant glossary at the end of it, which is fantastic, very helpful. Thank you for including that, because there is some terminology there where you can go through it and you're like, what the hell does this refer to? So let's start to break through that straight away. Technocracy is what you are talking about. And you've been on here before to talk about it. And this work is largely based on the work that you'd previously published on Unlimited Hangout, but you have expanded it substantially. So please, people, if you've read Iain's work on Unlimited Hangout, this is a whole new animal you have now in the form of this book. So let's talk about it. Technocracy. What is it, Iain? Is it a social credit system or something else?
Yeah, it's more than that. Technocracy is an entire kind of management system for society that's based upon the control and distribution of all resources. So interestingly enough, if you look up technocracy in the dictionary, so we look it up in the Oxford Dictionary, for example, it just says that it's government by experts, which is that is a very small part of technocracy. Technocracy is the centralized control and distribution of all resources, and a system, a monetary system that enables every aspect of society to be monitored and controlled at all times. Because obviously, most of our interactions in society is through the economy. So when we do business with each other, when we do anything, often that involves some sort of transaction, even if it's a contractual kind of exchange, such as the contractual relationship that you have with your GP. This is monitored and controlled centrally in a technocracy. That's what a technocracy is. The level of centralized control is almost beyond imagination. And indeed, when it was first mooted in the 1930s by a group called Technocracy Inc., it was unfeasible. It was unworkable. The level of social control that they were suggesting would have meant that, but basically half of the population would have had to work in this bureaucracy to make it work. So it wasn't feasible. But today, in the digital society that we've allowed to be constructed around us, it is entirely feasible. And not only that, I think probably the big change in order to make this system work is digital ID linked to digital currency, which is something that the original 1930s technocrats envisaged. They called them energy certificates. So they reimagined the monetary system. But those de facto energy certificates are now possible, for example, through digital ID linked to digital currency, which monitors and controls your carbon footprint, for example. So that enables that what the 1930s technocrats imagined is no longer in the realms of imagination. It is now in the realms of technological possibility. And indeed, we are seeing that system roll out. That is what they are creating.
This is the plan in long term in the making. Now, I think I might have asked you about this before, but I'm going to ask you about it again because you make this huge statement about it. You say that the worldwide implementation of technocracy, coupled with other nefarious activities, that's my words, not yours, this is you, the most terrifying, totalitarian, and lethal threat to liberty that the people on this planet have ever faced. To describe the danger level as unprecedented would be an understatement. That's a massive statement. Iain, expand on it for us.
Yeah, we are looking at a system. I mean, it's beyond, if you think of, you know, the most kind of totalitarian systems that we are probably familiar with. So, you know, two examples, fascism and communism. The level of control inherent in technocracy is way, way beyond anything that any, you know, even the most ardent fascist or communist could have ever possibly imagined. It gives a centralized control system for those that have access to it, for those that have access to, we might talk about the permissions to control that digital system. It gives social engineering control right down to the individual level. So if we think of, you know, the way that the Stasi might have worked in Eastern Europe, who are probably notorious as the most dangerous and the most vicious kind of centralized control bureaucracy that perhaps we've seen, even when we think about the mass killing of the Maoists or something like that. The Stasi had infiltrated society to an extent that I don't know many other examples of a group that had infiltrated society to that extent. They were still reliant upon human intelligence. They were still reliant upon people basically grassing up their friends and neighbors. They were reliant upon that, and people could and did circumnavigate their system. They could do that. People did, you know, produce, for example, underground literature, which they disseminated across Eastern Europe, which the Stasi couldn't stop, despite its tyrannical grip on the population in Eastern Germany. With this technological system, with a technocracy, the state, or, you know, and I would very much argue that the state is a public-private partnership, it doesn't need that kind of group or body. It doesn't need an authoritarian, you know, for want of a better expression, hit squad like the Stasi. It won't need that, because it will be able to monitor and control in real time through the digital networks that it is constructing every single thing that you do in society. You know, for example, the food you buy, when you buy it, where you buy it, who you buy energy from, I mean, we are talking absolute total control of every social aspect of your life, even to the point of, you know, it's not hard to envisage a moment where you think, oh, well, I can't afford to meet that person, because if I do, I know that they're a bit of a black sheep, and it might lower my credit score.
Ooh, that's awful stuff. You talk about Elon Musk's granddad, Joshua Haldeman. And so this is in Musk's blood, right? Because Joshua Haldeman formed Technocracy Incorporated. As you say, it's a long-term plan going on here. How central is Elon Musk to this plan and the purchasing of Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, well, so for example, yeah, I mean, I would say that Musk is very much part of this wider Silicon Valley-based clique of oligarchs, which include Thiel and Sam Altman and David Sachs and people like that, and Mark Andreessen, who have significant influence over the Trump administration.
Right.
To the extent that, I mean, I would argue that they practically control it. If you look at Trump's executive orders, the degree to which they benefit this clique is, you know, it's unwavering. Yeah, so he is steeped in that tradition of technocracy, and Musk has said things like "I am dark MAGA," where people have kind of gone, well, what does that mean? So people have made offered a number of different explanations to why he said "I am dark MAGA." But you know, including his commitment to, you know, things like the Doge coin and stuff like that, which was a joke meme coin, and this kind of thing. But quite clearly, he's very close to a group of oligarchs that believe in something called the neo-reactionaries. They believe in this idea of the Dark Enlightenment, and they believe in this. I mean, I've toyed with the idea of whether they actually believe it, whether they actually follow this ideology and this philosophy, or whether, you know, I argue that it could be that it's just convenient. It just fits in so perfectly with what they want to achieve, which is this total digital panopticon, this control grid, that it's just convenient to say, oh, and by the way, we've also got this ideological underpinning. Because if you read the philosophy of the Dark Enlightenment, which was written by a UK, initially written in 2012 by a UK philosopher, a guy called Nick Land.
Yes, you've talked about him before. Yes, we're going to get to him. We're going to get to that. Definitely. Yeah, no, I just want to go back, just briefly back to Elon Musk, because he said lots of weird stuff, right?
Yeah,
and I mean, on a constant basis. What does he mean by the Mars technocracy? What's that all about?
Well, that came as a conversation between him and this guy called Guillaume. I'm going to murder this French name, Guillaume Verdon. He's French Canadian. He had the little exchange with Builder. I think that the exchange was accelerating towards the Mars technocracy. So accelerating is something to look out for, because accelerating doesn't mean what we think it means when they say it.
What does it mean?
Accelerationism is an aggressive form of venture capitalism that tries to break systems by investing in what they call disruptive technology. So they're deliberately trying to destabilize and break systems, and they're talking about, you know, finance and you know, kind of technological investment in technological firms and startups. So the idea is to kickstart this kind of technological revolution by investing in these kind of disruptive technologies like AI and like you know, stablecoin and things like Tether and things like that. So that's what they're trying to do. But of course, that stems from this notion that was brought forward by an economist, Joseph Schumpeter, who had this idea of creative destruction. But creative destruction, Schumpeter argued, was a product of capitalism. It was an inevitable process as one new technology emerges, such as, you know, the car replaces the horse and cart. Not that that's an organic process, because as the car's invented, it becomes more practical than the horse and cart. So the horse and cart market vanishes and the car market emerges, and he called that creative destruction. But what they see it as, what what people like Land and a guy in America called Curtis Yarvin, what they envisage creative destruction as, is a technique to be used, a revolutionary technique to be used. So you deliberately try to break markets, you deliberately try to break and now that has socio-political connotations.
It certainly does,
because they all know that massive global corporations with market monopolies also have socio-political influence.
Right.
So if you can revolutionize that, you can revolutionize not just economics and finance, but by doing that, you also revolutionize socio-political structures. Their objective is private governance. So governance run by corporations. So this is what I mean about technocracy. So technocracy and the Dark Enlightenment overlap almost very neatly.
Exactly that, right? So what you say is, if technocracy is inhuman, which is a case that you do make in the book, right?
Yeah.
Dark enlightenment borders on psychopathic, right? So tell people about dark enlightenment. We're also going to get around to Peter Thiel, all manner of people. Don't worry. They're throwing me names in the comments, but don't worry. We're getting around to them. Yes, indeed we are. I just want to set this sort of understanding of what kind of groups we're dealing with. So the dark enlightenment, you mentioned Nick Land. Talk to us more about them.
Yeah, so he was in a research unit called the Cybernetics Culture Research Unit at Warwick University. And they were cyberpunks, self-styled cyberpunks, and they were iconoclasts, and they were very much in a pretty sort of normal kind of academic tradition, really. I mean, they were just playing with ideas, but the main thing that they all agreed on, and they were from both the right and the left of the political spectrum, I would add. There was a guy called Mark Fisher who was more on the left, and Nick Land who was considered to be more on the right. Again, we fall into this trap. We can barely describe their ideas using those left-right kind of political paradigms. They don't work because it's beyond that, as is technocracy and the Dark Enlightenment. So what they said was the singularity is approaching. That is their existential threat. The point at which technology outstrips humans' capability to keep up with it, to evolve with it. It goes beyond the speed at which we can evolve. Therefore, we need to evolve with technology. So we need to be literally transhumanism. We need to be converted into programmable machines, so that once we're converted into programmable machines, our species will be able to take advantage of the singularity rather than be subject to it. So they've got this basic philosophical framework that they are putting forward as a necessity. We have to become what Nick Land called technoplastic beings.
Jeez.
Right, so we have to be programmed, and he meant programmed on the genetic level as well. So we're not only will we have like nodes and be melded with computer technology, our genome will be engineered as well. But it's very elitist. It's very elitist. So some people, they'll get all the benefits of genetic enhancement, while other people who, and this is very important, they're anti-human. So he said our sovereignty will be treated with derision, right? So we are nothing. We are scum, really. We're just useful idiots to be programmed so that they can extract what he called sovereign rent from us. So we will pay.
Extraordinary stuff.
Yeah.
It's quite mind-blowing, isn't it? Very elitist. Yes, indeed. We are Borg, says Ange. I mean, so here's the thing, Iain. What role does Christianity have to play in any of this? Because you do talk about neo-reactionary Christianity. Is that the same as regular Christianity, or what's going on there?
Well, again, you know, they're trying to. So you've got to see that they're coming from this mindset of thinking. So this includes particularly Peter Thiel, coming from this mindset of thinking that they can smash everything to pieces, which they call deterritorialization, and then it can be remade into some sort of nirvana, which they would call re-territorialization. So with Christianity, Thiel argues that he was very much influenced by a philosopher that actually became a friend of his, a guy called René Girard, and he wrote or is it René? I can't remember. Girard. He wrote an article. Thiel wrote an article called "This Straussian Moment," which you'd think would be about Strauss, but it isn't. If you read it, it's got a lot of Girardian thinking in it. So what he argues is that the death of Christ proves that this archetypal sacrifice that we make, which you know, he says every society is based upon, or every new culture, especially religious culture, and Christianity is based upon this archetypal sacrifice, and that Christ's resurrection therefore proves that we were wrong to sacrifice him. because humanity accused Christ of being a charlatan, but his resurrection proves that he wasn't. Therefore, the archetype is flawed. And what the truth about the archetype is that we are inherently violent. We have this capacity in our society called mimesis, where we copy other people, and that violence is inherent to that. So we have to accept that, he says. So in his new reworking of the Christian fundamentals, is the sensible approach for a Christian to take is to get the balance right between a necessary level of violence and killing and a kind of, so that we can avoid what he calls the twin dangers of the Antichrist, which is, he calls one world government, but it's not as simple as that, but and the apocalypse, which is us kind of falling prey to the notion that we can escape the singularity by having some sort of better political systems, you know. So he says we need to, there's a third way, and the third way is somewhere between total global governance and the breakdown of the apocalypse, is by balancing, you know, a good Christian politician will balance the correct kind of surgical use of violence. Violence needs to be surgical. So you take surgical strikes on Hamas leaders, for example, which Palantir Software has assisted the Israelis in doing, rather than indiscriminately carpet bombing Gaza, which Palantir has also participated in helping the Israelis do that. So it's not quite. It's the things.
No,
he says
I understand. No, I get you. It's almost like they're trying to rewrite Christianity for the tech bros. So here's the thing. That's exactly what they're trying to do. So here's the thing. Yeah. These technocrats, do they all link up? Because obviously Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, they go back, don't they, as one example? And you mentioned Palantir, which is Peter Thiel and Alex Karp. So are they all linking up, these technocrats?
Yeah, so Karp and Thiel sit on the steering group of the Bilderberg group. So alongside people like Eric Schmidt from Google and Jorge Brende from the World Economic Forum. So it's all one thing. It's all one thing. But what the technocrats and the neo-reactionaries, the NRX, the short for that, the NRX linked Silicon Valley oligarchs in the US have managed to sell to the US electorate is that they're opposed to this global oligarchy, even though they couldn't be more part of it. But they've managed to sell this through the Trump administration to the American electorate.
It's amazing, actually.
So what they're doing is, you know, the digital transformation has already been sold, I would argue, to people that are of the traditional left through sustainable development. Right. They're already on board with it. Right. So sustainable development is all about the technological revolution. That's what it's about. That's what sustainable and enforcing that technological control on the global population. And most on the left are kind of on board with that because they think that the planet's on fire. The right are less on board with that. They don't think the planet's on fire because it isn't, but they're you know, they're far more skeptical about this centralized control. So how do you sell it to them? Well, along come this group of Silicon Valley oligarchs backing the Trump administration that make it all about resisting the overreach of globalism,
right,
and fighting against it, whilst delivering exactly in fact, if anything, they're delivering the kind of, if we think of digital ID, for example, which is SDG 16.9, that they're delivering that at a rate of knots. They're delivering that very quickly in the US and also globally. So they're speeding up, accelerating the imposition of the digital infrastructure, and their firms are absolutely linked to the mechanism. So firms like Palantir, Oracle, OpenAI, Clearview AI, all these companies are the companies that are actually delivering that SDG 16.9, whilst pretending, certainly from a political point, and it's a PR pitch, that they're opposed to it.
Right.
So Mark Andreessen, who's certainly part of this clique, wrote a thing called the Techno Optimist Manifesto, in which he openly said, we are accelerationists, which is saying we are neo-reactionaries. We are, and when he means we, he means, people often talk about the PayPal mafia. He means that group. We are accelerationists, so we are committed to the dark enlightenment, is what he's saying.
You have a different name for them. Oh, sorry. Go on. Just say.
Yeah,
go on.
So we are committed to the dark enlightenment. And yeah, but the other name is a surprise in the book.
Well, I think it's very interesting because you also refer to James Corbett, but you're absolutely right. We need to be calling things what they are, right?
Yeah.
So just because, as you say, they like to call themselves things like thought leaders and elite and techno kings and all that, we should be calling them what, Iain? What are they?
Right. So I've decided that we should call them neo-nerds.
I think it's appropriate. Neo-nerds is brilliant. Sums it up perfectly.
Because you're quite right. So they use language like Musk has said that he described himself as I can't remember who else it was as well, but it wasn't Carp. It was it was somebody else, but as techno kings, right? So they call themselves techno kings. And very much the Dark Enlightenment is about creating a new kind of feudal monarchy. So you have these, what they call the founders of a you could call it a GovCore technate, or sometimes you could call it a new kind of network archipelago, or whatever they want to term it. It's a new type of structure, and this is again the problem, and why I wrote the book. It's because they are using terminology, and they are using words, and they are using language that is almost indecipherable, so that they can talk to each other and and talk about ideas. They know what they mean, but the rest of us looking at it going, well, what? I'm not sure what all that means. What does that mean?
Right.
So I wanted to demystify that. So a big part of demystifying that is acknowledging what they want and who they are. So they're neo. So this is a new clique of oligarchs. I mean, they're not so new, but they're new in the greater scheme of things.
They're new enough.
Who are hell bent upon using technology to control all of us. So people that are obsessed with technology and computers, nerds, hence neo-nerds. They're neo-nerds because that gives us a framework where we're not accepting their claims of being kings.
Exactly. And that immediately is a very empowering movement. Immediately. Mayday suggests technopaths, which I also like as well. I think that's an interesting one in the comments. Technopaths, very good. So where is this all going to? I mean, ultimately, you talk about a new world currency. You talk about a multipolar world order. Well, we've heard about a new world order for a very, very long time. But this is different, isn't it, where we're heading, that they're taking us?
Yeah, it is and it isn't. I mean, I would say it's a precursor to establishing full-blown global government. But what if you look at the way that the UN in particular has been shifting since about 2004, well, even earlier, late 1990s, it is very much shifted towards this idea of the independent city-state. So this idea that mayors can form global parliaments. So we've already got the global parliament of mayors, which is giving mayors, independent of the nation states in which their cities reside, global governance roles. Right. So they're not the government, right? They're not the government of the nation. They're the representatives of the city. Now, one of the things that the global parliament of mayors claim is that the city has a right to self-governance. So the city is somehow independent from. Now, this fits in very much with a lot of things that people would like to see. We would like to see decentralization of authority. We would like to, and with good reason. Well, there's good reason for that. But these people recognize that. So what they're doing is they are disarming our arguments as they go by using our own arguments to create what they want, which is ultimately centralized tyranny. That's what they want.
Right.
So they use decentralization, which a lot of us talk about as an important part of, striving for a more kind of libertarian view of things, as a method to create a network, like nodes on a computer, like nodes on a distributed ledger, to link together, to work together interoperably, which is something very important in the book that I talk about, to link together so that they can centrally manage the network. So from us, our perspective, we think, great, yeah, decentralization, more local governance, that's a good idea. But if local governance is controlled centrally by its commitment to a fixed set of policy commitments, which is what global governance delivers, then they're not truly independent. They're part of a network that is moving all moving along the same policy trajectory, which is exactly what is happening. So around the world, there are thousands of these new special economic zones springing up. Thousands. Now, those special economic zones enable multinational corporations to do whatever they like, basically. They are free from government. Now, this is really important. Governments around the world are agreeing to this. They're agreeing to it. So, for example, the Nigerian government, they've got a special economic zone where they've got a startup city built there called Itana, is being built there called Itana, where it's been openly stated that when you're in the SEZ, the Itana SEZ, you are outside the Nigerian state. So this is a centralized. This is a city state where multinational corporations can go there. They don't have to pay. And this is the world over. They've got them in Iran. They've got them in Saudi Arabia. They've got them in the US. They've got them in the UK. This is where they can basically invest to their heart's content without having to pay any tax or follow any regulations. That is what these things are.
Got you. This comment I think is interesting because it concerns me if this is actually the case, but I would like your feedback on this. This is from Shug, says it's all about removing the last thing you still have, Sonia, free will. Is it that stark, Iain?
Ultimately, yes. Yeah, ultimately that's what it's about. Yeah, they want to remove free will, definitely. But I think one of the things another reason. So why do I call them neo nerds? Right, because a lot of this stuff works because for some reason to this point, we, humanity, have allowed these people to do this stuff and kind of assumed they can. We assume, well, they're just so powerful. They've got they've got all this money. They're
exactly
so
that. You can feel helpless even listening to what you're saying. There's a sense of helplessness. Is there not anything we can do to stop this march?
If we don't comply, it doesn't happen. Simple as that. If we have all the power, all of it, their whole thing, they're trying to impose this kind of top-down control on us, but it only works if we comply. If we don't comply, there's nothing they can do about it. Nothing. Because we outnumber them. There's 8 billion of us and there's a few thousand of them. So we just don't have to buy into any of it. None of it. And if we refuse to use, obviously digital ID is a big thing in the UK now, because they're obviously trying to force it on everybody. We have to stand up against that. But we're not going to do that by voting for another political party.
Right.
Because they're still going to impose it. And they are imposing it. The digital ID infrastructure already exists in the UK. So it's not as if, the whole brick card things, in my view, is just distraction. Because,
yes, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just they're just trying to say, well, this is digital ID. And that's not digital ID. digital ID is an interoperable network that links things like your driving license to your bank card. That's
Right.
digital ID. That's
Right.
what they've got. I mean, again, Palantir, very deeply involved in that. So even though, I mean, you get the I thought it was hilarious that you've got Lewis Mosley, the CEO director of Palantir UK and Palantir Europe, saying that Palantir were opposed to digital ID. Well, they're opposed to the brick card because they know that that's rubbish. It's got enough, and they're not really opposed to brick card. What they're saying is, and what he was pitching was, yeah, we don't want brick card. We don't want a centralized digital ID issued by the government. All we need to do, and he actually said this, all we need to do is tweak the back end. That's what he said, tweak the back end.
Right.
What he means is using software like Palantir Gotham that scrapes data from everything, and puts it into a machine readable, exchangeable format. So your data from your DVLA driving license can be linked seamlessly to your data from your bank card, for example, in real time, immediately. So you've got this huge data set, which ordinarily you'd think, well, you can't make any sense of that. It'd just be too much data for any system to cope with. AI is the game changer. So
Indeed.
you just type in Sonia Poulton, and AI, using Palantir Gotham, can go out into the ether and suck up every single bit of data about you as an individual in a nanosecond. And they've got a complete picture of your life in just like that. And then if that's linked to programmable money, then if they don't like what Sonia's been saying today on her show, well, we're not going to allow Sonia to buy certain media. We're not going to allow her. We're not going to allow her to buy that book.
Right, exactly. Press a few buttons, exactly that. Iain, I've got to let you go, which is more's the pity. When is this available?
Hopefully, it should be out. Not quite sure yet, but should be out for Christmas, I hope.
Excellent. Anything you want to add just before you leave us?
No, well, just thanks very much for having me on. You can find me at iaindavis.com, and my name's IAIN Davis.com, all one word. Also at my Substack, where I'm currently expanding a bit on the brick card kind of site, which is iaindavis.substack.com, and also my original pieces that I'm at work for Unlimited, Hangout, Geopolitics and Empire, and you can also find quite a lot of my pieces on Off Guardian as well.
Fascinating topic, absolutely fascinating. I love the way you break it down, Iain. This is Iain Davis talking about the technocratic dark state. Wonderful to have you with us, Iain. Take good care of yourself. Good luck with that book. Iain Davis, everybody. Wonderful to have him with us. I think Iain just explains things so clearly with such ease. I do like that very much. Don't forget, right, Chris Valance says, Sonia, don't forget that digital money is programmable. So it will come with a spending time line limit. After that date, the money gets deleted. Got you. Oh, what was there more? So you can't ever save money. Extraordinary. Actually, that's an extraordinary thing. Excuse me. Right. How are you all there in the comments? You beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people. Right. Time is marching on, of course. And I want to refer to... I don't want to say too much about Prince Andrew today. I've covered loads on these people recently, but other than to say there's another cover up in the making. Truly there is. The Public Accounts Committee have written to Prince Andrew, and it's about this property that they have, the Royal Lodge in Windsor Park. It's a huge property, massive. I think it's like a 30-room property that Andrew and Sarah Ferguson and a bunch of other kind of ne'er-do-wells have been staying at, and they live on a peppercorn rent. Peppercorn rent is an old term, and it's about just paying a small amount to acknowledge that you are renting it. Anyway, the Public Accounts Committee have written to him, and they want to talk about the Crown Estate. The Crown Estate, of course, brings in millions of pounds every year for the royal family. And I think this is some people feel that this is a distraction. They feel that it's a sort of targeting of Prince Andrew, obviously in the wake of Virginia Giuffre's book, which we looked at on Friday and which I will refer to briefly shortly, but also the Epstein emails that are slowly being released, only like, a decade too late. But, so some people see it as a distraction, but I don't. I see it all as the same thing. And that is royalty must be abolished. Absolutely must be abolished. Because one thing that I didn't know, and which actually really threw me, is that the royal household is supposed to be not political, but the royal household are currently informing Parliament because the government has, up to a certain point, before this Public Accounts Committee letter, the government was refusing to allocate any time in the House of Commons for MPs to discuss Andrew's situation in the House. And the reason why is because the royal family had instructed Parliament to focus on important issues. Since when has the royal family been running our parliamentary system? Anyway, they have. And the Liberal Democrats are hoping that they could raise the issue on a day when ministers are not in control of the parliamentary timetable. Each party gets a certain amount of days when they can raise issues that haven't been approved. But essentially, our members of Parliament are being constrained. That is a reality. And because the ability of MPs to discuss matters relating to the royal family is actually further constrained under parliamentary rules. There's a guide known as Erskine May, and that states very clearly that unless the discussion is based upon a substantive motion drawn in proper terms, reflections must not be cast in debate upon the conduct of the sovereign, the heir to the throne, or other members of the royal family. And people wonder why they've been getting away with it so long, because it's written that they shouldn't be the subject of discussion. But the other thing that's recently come out as well, I think in this last week, obviously, is the absolute complicity of Sarah Ferguson, originally married to Andrew and still very close to him. And I think what I didn't realize before is that after he'd left prison, Sarah Ferguson took her young daughters to meet him. Very weird stuff. Why would you do that? But apparently that happened. And Ferguson has, now it's all come out about kind of her complicity, and essentially because she's really greedy and she wanted money from him. Like, these are very, very greedy people who don't really want to work, but they're compromised because they accept money from people, including a paedophile. That's the reality. So as I say, I don't want to dwell too long on that if I can help it. But I also want to comment on this weekend. When I was chilling, as you do, I decided to watch the film Back to the Future. I mean, that was such a huge film for me when I was growing up. It came out in 1985, so I would have been 21. It was massive. I remembered, Michael J. Fox on skateboards, and I was a skateboarder as well. Before that. And it's obviously the story about Dr. Emmett Brown, this kind of like portrayed as a mad scientist. And he has this DeLorean car. I mean, the amount of actual product placement in the film astonished me when I watched it back. And that in itself was interesting, particularly Pepsi. Pepsi is in numerous scenes in that film. Make of that what you will. But let me just bring in these images. But you know what threw me? It's really weird, isn't it? Right? When we look back at films, we often don't realize what the real message is that's being conveyed. Now, I'm not saying that what I'm about to say is the real message, but it's certainly one of the messages, and it disturbed me greatly because I loved that film. I thought it was fantastic, very exciting. It was Steven Spielberg was the executive producer, but actually there's a real iffy storyline. It's about Michael J. Fox obviously going back in time and his mother developing a crush on him, kisses him, tries to seduce him. So actually Back to the Future has a sizable chunk of it, which is actually about incest. And I was really uncomfortable because all the stuff that I've done, that's his mum. There he is. He's gone back to the future. That's his mum. She's doing everything she can. She's everything she can to seduce him. And all the work that I've done with survivors of child abuse and child abuse, I had all these years, it took me all these years later to watch it back and realize that a central theme in this story is about incest. And I was deeply, deeply disturbed about it. And I'm not going to make any big, long, lengthy comment about it other than to say it's so weird when we look back at films that we grew up with and realize that there are these other messages that are also being pushed through. I must have been really quite naive at 21 not to be like irked by it, but I struggled to watch this, and the way it was all portrayed, it was I found it really uncomfortable, because the point was that was his mum. So yeah, I was uncomfortable about that, and that's the kind of girl. I was just thinking about this. Vape King, were you? And because actually the reason I was watching it was October the 26th was the day that he came back from the future. October the 26th, 1985. Well, October the 26th was yesterday. Really interesting. Indiana Jones has a thing for a 15-year-old. See, I mean, that's the thing. We have been programmed from birth, Cosmic. That is the reality, isn't it? But I just wanted to raise that up because, you know, Back to the Future is really part of kind of like our culture. It really is. It's one of those movies that is part of our culture. So really weird stuff. Your shout, response to my review to do with Virginia Roberts, Giuffre, Nobody's Girl. So many amazing messages on YouTube, on social media, to my emails. I have to say, you blew me away. I cried a lot reading them. You touched my heart. I am incredibly honored to be followed and supported by such incredibly insightful and compassionate people. Yes, it was hard to do. Yes, my voice cracked. Yes, I did get a little teary. And yes, at times I was emotional. And I thank you for so fulsomely and wholeheartedly responding to that in the way that you did. That is just amazing, really amazing. And thank you so much. And I will put a link in the description to that review if you haven't yet watched it. But I thought, this was a really so many great comments, and thank you for that. This was an interesting comment, and I meant to comment on this actually. I think this is from Enter Shikari, and it said, has no one questioned the coincidence between the opening of this book being in the Louvre, the heist of the Louvre this week, and the release of the book this week? And absolutely, Enter Shikari, I did. I thought that was interesting. So last week, of course, there was the heist of the Louvre in Paris, and Virginia's book opens in the Louvre, and Epstein and Maxwell had taken her there, and they all appeared in the same week. And I thought that was really interesting. Really interesting. Thank you so much, people. You're wonderful people. You're wonderful. And I appreciate you very much. And I did mention Molly Sky Brown. Molly Sky Brown has now been approached by Piers Morgan and will be on Piers Morgan's show, I believe, today. And Molly Sky Brown has written a blog in which she talked about me. And she said, British journalist Sonia Poulton witnessed everything unfold on Twitter in 2020. She saw the coordinated harassment happening to me, to other survivors who tried to support me, and eventually to herself, simply for investigating and trying to listen. Despite the risk, Sonia platformed me multiple times, giving me space to speak when no one else in the media would. And that's why we're ahead of the game, gang, because that was 2020 when I gave Molly a platform, and Piers Morgan is giving her a platform in 2025. These people are so far behind us. It's not even true. It's not even true. They're so far behind us. And but big shout out to Molly Sky Brown and to lovely Joe Britton. And right, a few of you have asked me about dog charities. I mentioned the dog charity last week. This week, I'm going to highlight one, an international charity. And this is from lovely Becky. She said, hello, Sonia. I hope you're well. I'm a fellow adopter of a Romanian street dog and also a huge animal lover. She adopted her dog from an amazing charity called REAN, Rescuing European Animals in Need, 8 years ago. But she still follows them. She still donates to them when she can. They're trying to currently save Turkish street dogs. They have to regularly put out appeals for donations to feed them. She sent me screenshots. These dogs are emaciated. My things, people have said to me before, why are you promoting dogs from abroad? But why not? They all need help, right? I'm not that kind of person. I'm only going to promote dogs in the UK. Besides, my experience of dog charities in the UK is very, very poor indeed. I couldn't get a dog from dog charities in the UK. So that's why we went abroad. But either way, if an animal needs a home and I can do anything to facilitate that in any way whatsoever, I don't care where they're coming from, but I will put a link to REAN, Rescuing European Animals in Need, in the description. And because there are many amazing animal charities across Europe, and I cannot bear to see animals like this. So seriously emaciated. It breaks my sodding heart. Can't bear it, people. I cannot bear it. And have you noticed that our skies have been incredibly clear for an interesting period of time? Nobody in this world can tell me that chemtrails happen as a consequence of the conditions that are taking place, because they don't just happen once in a blue moon. This is drumsticks. I don't know if Drum is in the chat today, but proving that geoengineering is absolutely not limited to one country. Drumstick attached this photo, high resolution, of the sky above Copenhagen, and that was this month. Drumstick said after a summer with clear skies, they have resumed spraying the chemtrails. Well, I agree. I saw it this morning. They're out there this morning. And also Carl sent what was going on in West London. Morning. West London, completely normal, said Carl. That was last week. So yes, absolutely, they're back in full force, no doubt about it. That is not normal, that is not natural, and that is not air conditioned. There you are, Drum. Thank you for sending in your image, my love. Very much appreciate that. Beautiful people as ever. New edition. I finally worked out how to do chapters on the videos. If you look at the Virginia Giuffre video, you will see that there are chapters. I think it was lovely Elaine, who watches the show regularly, who asked me to do it, and it's done, Elaine. And today's show will be done in chapters. And what I will do is I will do the chapters, and it will be, you will see in the description below where each time is, with a brief description of what those chapters are. What's that, Mayday? Have you seen Takis Shelter on YouTube? Takis on Crate has 600 dogs and growing. Amazing shelter for cats and dogs. Thank you. I will check them out. Thank you so much. And a big shout out to our beautiful Markcuson, saying Markcuson has released a track on all socials, Digital ID. It's out now on Spotify, on Amazon Music, and on iTunes. I will put a link in the description to it. I adore Markcuson. He's contributed so much to Wake Up, and he's been absolutely, truly wonderful. And I appreciate him very, very much. So please check out his tune, people. As I say, I will put a link in the description. And thank you as ever to our wonderful donators, to Helen OC, to Peter B, to Dinesh N, to Merv W, to Susan R. And I forgot to mention our donators on the live stream last Monday. So thank you, Danielle Krause. Thank you, Fred Withrow. Thank you, Kath Hutton. And also for today, you star. Thank you, Swiss Miss. And also again for today, absolutely. Thank you to Sandy D, to Sticky Marks, to Mr. Zane. And also, I would just like to thank also Elaine from the Well Happy Band, who made a contribution to Wake Up on Friday after watching my Virginia Giuffre video. And I'm going to read the message, and I hope that's all right. It says, "Dear Sonia, thank you for everything you do. I cried with you today. It must have been very difficult. I've been wanting to donate for a while, and I'm now in a position to do so. I watch your shows every week. Kind regards, Elaine." And I thank you so much for that. I burst out crying when I read that, and I saw your generous donation. Every penny counts around here. That's what makes it possible to do Wake Up. And I thank you all deeply. You wonderful, incredible people. Right. Last comment today. Over the weekend, so clocks went back in the Northern Hemisphere, which obviously includes the UK. So it's a perfect time to coincide with this email from viewer Glenn, who wrote in, "Dear Sonia, is it just me, or do you feel a general sense of stagnation, as if the whole world is synced up to do absolutely nothing? I've had this sense of being stuck for a while now, as if I am on a permanent loop. Do you or any Wake Up viewers feel the same? Love, Glenn." And yes, I felt like that, although not at this moment. But if you are, I should say this is a great week to get unstuck. A great week. Thank you all for your beautiful comments. And the reason I say it's a great week is I'm a planet watcher, and the planet Mercury, which is associated with communication, with movement, with travel, that's going to be having a very interesting week. And in fact, on Wednesday, we may even be able to see Mercury. Now, Mercury is so bright, people often confuse it for a star. Okay. And it's really, it's not a coincidence that a lot of presidents and their wives have often talked to astrologers, because they often plot the things that they're going to be doing when the planets align in a certain way that may be favorable. Well, it's favorable this week for moving and acting. Moving and acting. You are welcome, Swiss Miss, you absolute star. Short Order Cook said, yes, Glenn, designed to wear us all out slowly. Rachel feels the same way. So I just wanted to do a little brief chat at the end of this about staying stuck, why people stay stuck, and how to move if you're ready to. So some people stay stuck because some injustice was visited on them at some stage in their lives, right? It could have been anything. It could have been anything. It could have been an accident that should never have happened. It could have been abuse. It could have been anything, any injustice that has visited somebody. And sometimes people become absolutely defined by whatever happened to them. And they get stuck in that mode, sometimes in a victim mode, and they don't like it any more than anybody else, but they feel stuck and they don't necessarily want to do it. A very small percentage of people enjoy being stuck in a victim mode. I'm absolutely convinced of that, but some people don't know how to get out of it. And one of the things that I know needs to take place is you need to build confidence. Confidence is so vital to anything, including moving on. And one of the things that you can do, simple stuff. If you're listening to this, you're saying, I feel absolutely stuck. Just write simple lists. I'm a list person, right? And one of the things that you need to do absolutely is identify your strengths. What is it? What are your positive skills and qualities? You have them. I know you have them. Maybe somebody hasn't told you, maybe hasn't enabled you throughout your life. We're not all born with the same, wonderful parents around us who can help us and enable us. No, some people have to get on themselves. And that also can make people feel stuck. So please, first of all, identify your strengths. They are there. And a good clue is what makes you happy. What do you enjoy doing? Because I'm telling you, if you enjoy doing something, you get a buzz from it, chances are that is one of your skills. That is one of your talents. You also have to examine how you are talking to yourself. It is so important that the moment that you hear negativity creeping in, that you work to get rid of it. One of the reasons I decided to do a psychology degree was I had very, very bad OCD. I've written about it. I'm not ashamed about it. I did things that honestly were kind of crazy. I couldn't bear seeing my daughter's dolls without any clothes on, so I'd fully dress them. Coins, I'd turn head up because I felt that the queen was suffocating. Crazy stuff, right? And so I did a psychology degree in order to be able to help myself, and I have helped myself largely. I was also, because I'd been in 2 house fires as a child, so trauma. I was also petrified about fire. I am a major unplugger. I unplug pretty much everything on when I'm going out. And good vibes only, DJ Markcuson. Absolutely indeed. So here's the thing, is that we get stuck for all manner of reasons, but it's really important to change that self-talk. And so I did that psychology degree so I could essentially fight back with myself in my head. So when I had this voice telling me, check the cooker again for like the 50th time, I then learned through my psychology to go, no, you can F off. And I started to get really aggressive with this other voice. And slowly but surely I overcame it. So, you can do it. I think all the power is within you. And one of the ways to do also is set yourself small goals, right? Accomplishing small tasks will not only give you confidence, but it will also prove that you are capable of doing these things. And every step, mark it down. You see yourself. If you continue to be stuck for a trauma, don't not seek help if you need it. If you need help, seek help, right? But it's really important at this stage, if you're feeling stuck, to surround yourself with as much positivity as possible. Seek out people who support you, even a community like Wake Up. We have this incredible, if you feel lost and you haven't made it into our live chat, please do come and join our live chat. We have a beautiful family here, don't we, Lisa? Don't we, Gina? We do, Kerry, we do, Paul, all of you beautiful people that I'm seeing here. We have an incredible family, a Wake Up family. Come and take some courage and confidence from our beautiful Wake Up family, because we're here for you. Try not to unplug the freezer. Mr. Mensa, that's the one thing I don't do, right? But yeah, I mean, because I don't want a fire. I don't want to be caught in a fire, but I am much better about those things these days. You're welcome, Cosmic. Right, so just to say, easy stuff, how to take action, start with a plan. Really simple stuff. If a goal seems daunting, break it down into manageable steps. If your goal is, I don't know, to write a manuscript of your life, then set yourself a goal of trying to flesh out what each chapter might be. Okay. And also be prepared to face your fears, because the thing is, what we were talking about last week, imagine the best case scenario. Well, imagine the worst case scenario. Do that as well. And plan how you will handle it, and believe in your ability to execute that plan, because you are capable of it. But the most important thing, if you want to get out of a rut, get out of your comfort zone. Do something that pushes yourself. You've got it. You can do this. You really can. And to you too, boobs. Who are you sending love and light to? I love you too, Gina. You're a star. You're a wonderful, wonderful human being. So these names I'm about to put up on the screen, these are my wonderful patrons, and I love them very, very much. And they're very supportive of me. I obviously have a Patreon, and my patrons here, first off, what I'm up to. And but I'm very grateful to them. I'm grateful to anybody who contributes to Wake Up in whatever way that you can. Not everybody can financially contribute, but likes, share and subscribe also helps. And I appreciate you very much. You absolute stars. Yes, I do. Yes, I do indeed. Thank you so much. And as ever, we are going to end on a quote this week, because the most important thing, Glenn, about feeling stuck is integrating what you are capable of knowing about yourself with some action. You can create this incredible, powerful cycle. And the quote I want to end on is, when your body surrenders to movement, your soul remembers to dance. And I absolutely love that. Thank you all for being here with me today. Thank you to my guests, of course, Iain Davis and Warren Thornton. And I will see you beautiful, beautiful people on Friday. Take good care of yourself. Lots of love to you.